Hi, my name is Leah Xanda, and I'm a planner who is working on behalf of DelDOT for the 5 Points Transportation Study. We had a public open house on June 14th at Cape Henlopen Cafeteria, but if you're unable to make the open house, this presentation is identical to the one we gave in person. Before we get into it, first I want to share DelDOT's mission, which is every trip, every mode, every dollar, every one. We are working every day to make your transportation network safe, reliable, and convenient. I also would like to share the latest version of Delaware traffic fatalities. Unfortunately, as you probably know, we have been having an unprecedented uptick in fatal crashes on our roadways. As of June 12th, there have been 66 traffic fatalities, which is slightly down year to date compared to 2022, but is still far higher than we were back in 2021. So I please encourage you all to slow down, buckle up, encourage your neighbors to do the same, and drive safely when traveling our roadways. So the purpose of our 5 Points open house is to provide an update on our 2022 accomplishments and discuss our goals for 2023. As you may know, the 5 Points Transportation Study is a real partnership between DelDOT and Sussex County. See a number of names on the slide here of folks who are involved in this project, from Deputy Secretary Shante Hastings at DelDOT, Todd Lawson, the administrator for Sussex County, both of their respective planning leadership and planners as well at DelDOT. So thank all of these folks for their hard work and working collaboratively over the years. So some background on 5 Points. You see the map on the left there really highlights our study area. So the 5 Points intersection is kind of there in the middle where Route 9 meets Route 1, right at the 5 Points intersection itself. But also we really are looking at projects and the way traffic works in the surrounding area that feeds into that intersection. And from the beginning, we've been working to develop concepts and recommendations to improve local traffic circulation in that area you see on the screen. Also focused on serving you, local residents, as well as businesses. And we regularly collect information from the working group and the public. That's why we had this open house and are posting this to the website so you can hear what we're up to and give us your feedback. It's also informed by the county's comprehensive planning process, as well as ongoing data and technical analysis. So we're out there keeping an eye on what's going on with traffic across the planning area. And we really want to address both Route 1 itself, as well as the local connections in consideration of all the current capital projects, which I'll share a little bit more with you in a moment. So this study has been underway for quite some time now. Phase 1 began in 2017, where we developed some recommendations. And Phase 2, since 2019, we've really been focusing on implementing those recommendations. And there are 78 of them. So since there were so many, we decided it would be helpful to kind of categorize them into different descriptive categories to help us better track them and help you understand what we're up to. So 7 of our recommendations are to be implemented under current DelDOT projects. 27 recommendations are changes in policies and procedures, basically the way DelDOT and the county do day-to-day business to make sure that we're working on making the area more efficient, sustainable, and beautiful. The green category you see there is really about making the most of existing roadway infrastructure. That relates to 20 of our recommendations. So when DelDOT is out there doing projects that are just standard maintenance or improvement projects, are we taking advantage of all the different changes we can make to really capitalize on what we already have? The red category is focused on multimodal improvements or making walking, biking, and transit a little bit more viable as alternatives to driving. Obviously seen a lot of success of the trail network in and around the Lewis vicinity, and every person that elects to take a short trip riding a bike or walking is one car off the road and helps alleviate congestion. And lastly, our yellow categories, which there's 9 recommendations here, which is investing in brand new infrastructure to support anticipated growth. So that's the bigger projects that are going to take a little bit longer to plan and implement, but we do expect a lot of improvement coming out of those new projects. So one of the big things we like to talk about our workshop is our most recent annual report. Obviously this year it's the 2022 annual report, and this really gets into all of the details of what we did this past calendar year, and it is available in full for you to review if you go to the public input website, which you can get to there. You see the website www.publicinput.com/5points, or scan that QR code with your phone right now. You'll see on the right-hand side of the website, there's a document tab, and underneath that, a link to the full annual report. And really, we'd love to hear what you have to think about what we've been up to, and how we can improve in communicating with you, and also improve as we work in the community to implement our recommendations. So the 2022 annual report does a few things. It describes the implementation progress we made in 2022. So that is, what are all the activities DelDOT and the county have been up to in and around the 5 Points area. And it also provides a detailed description of the status of each of those 78 recommendations as of the end of 2022. And there's 2 opportunities to meet with the project team and review that report. One you are taking advantage of right now. That is the online video featuring the workshop presentation and the materials from the workshop. That's posted on the website along with a comment form. So please, after you listen to this recording, jump over to that comment form and let us know what you think. And depending on when you're listening to this, you may also have the opportunity to check out the in-person workshop at Cape Henlopen High School cafeteria. That's Wednesday, June 14th at 6 p.m. So again, but even if you can't make it in person, don't worry. If you do leave that online comment form, or shoot DelDOT a snail mail, or even give them a phone call, a member of the project team will be in touch to help answer your questions. So now I'm going to provide a high-level overview of the contents of that annual report, starting with our working group meetings. So in 2022, we held 3 working group meetings. They were hybrid, which means members of the working group were able to either join us in person at Cape Henlopen High School Library, or dial in via Zoom. And the meetings were also open to the public, both in person, although we do encourage folks attend in Zoom because it's a little bit easier actually to see the presentation attending virtually than in the room with us. And you'll see on the right hand side there our 2022 working group members, many of whom have been involved in this study since 2017. Now this study wouldn't be valuable without the active public participation that we've seen so far, so thank you for staying with us throughout this process and getting involved and providing your input. It really does make a difference. So there was one public workshop conducted last year for this effort, and that was in June. It was very similar to the workshop we're holding this year, and really focused on the progress we made during the previous calendar year. One other thing we really like to highlight is the DelDOT Capital Transportation Program, and that's basically DelDOT's budget for large transportation projects. So since we last spoke with you, the Council on Transportation did approve DelDOT's fiscal year 23 to 28 Capital Transportation Program in February. Then that has to get passed on to the Federal Highway Administration, who approved the CTP in November of 2022. Now, 9 new projects in Sussex County were added to that CTP, and 3 of those are in the 5 Points area. So I'll be providing some more detail on that in a moment. And just for your information, that document is now updated every 2 years. So that's an opportunity for DelDOT and the county to get together and discuss priorities and projects and what really needs to get done. So again, information and feedback you provide us as part of this 5 Points planning process also gets passed on to those decision makers, because it helps us understand what the public's priorities are. So here is a list of the area projects that were in the previous CTP and are still in the current CTP. You'll see a number that are likely familiar to you, in part because some of them are beginning to come online and get under construction soon. So for example, the Plantation Road improvements, those of you living in the area are well aware of the construction impacts of the Plantation Road project. Some other grade separated intersection projects and others. So if you were with us or do come out to the public in-person meeting, we will have representatives from DelDOT Project Development with us to provide some details on all these projects underway. And if not, I do encourage you to go to the DelDOT Projects website. If you just Google DelDOT Projects Portal, you'll see there's an interactive map you can use to kind of zoom in and select the project you're interested in and learn all about what's current information about timing, as well as the design for these projects listed. Now, I mentioned there's 3 new projects in the FY23 to 28 CTP. That is the Mulberry Knoll Road Extension Project, improvements on Postal Lane between Linden Lane and SR1, and improvements on Shady Road between Plantation and SR1. And these, again, since they're new to the CTP, they're still pretty far out as far as design and construction goes, so we do anticipate that preliminary engineering for all 3 of those projects will begin likely in FY28. So cumulatively, we're looking at a fair bit of commitment from DelDOT in the 5 Points area. You see this chart basically highlights how many funds are being invested per that CTP each fiscal year. The blue bar represents the amount of state dollars going into the 5 Points area. The orange bar represents the total of state and federal dollars coming into the 5 Points area, and all combined, this means about $204 million proposed investment in this area over the next 6 years. So if you're listening to me, you probably are interested in staying up to date throughout the year. And although we do not have we have the one public workshop a year, we do regularly update the project website so that if you are interested in knowing what's going on, you have a resource for that. Those of you who have been following us are familiar with the 5points.deldot.gov website on the left. That has a ton of background on this project and process and archived documents. And recently launched is a new page called the Public Input Portal website. It is going to be home to active DelDOT projects. You'll see a number of them are up already, along with a new page for the 5 Points Transportation Study. And that page will really be used to house our most recent meeting information, the recordings of me that you've seen right now, you've accessed via that portal. So it really will focus on recent meetings, recordings from those meetings, and active current documents. And once those documents become are replaced by the next working group meeting, the previous documents will be transferred over to the DelDOT website to kind of be archived. So hopefully you'll find that this new public input portal is a valuable place for you to visit and check out not only what's going on in the 5 Points area, but what DelDOT is up to and planning for projects throughout the state. Another easy way to stay up to date is really just subscribe to our Following 5 Points newsletter. So these come out every couple months and include a recap of our most recent working group meeting, as well as information on some other things going on in the project area, other projects, construction, and upcoming opportunities to get engaged. So encourage you to, if you've not already, visit the DelDOT project website and you can subscribe to Following 5 Points. So earlier I alluded to the fact that the annual report really includes information on progress in the past year. And this bar chart kind of summarizes, since we began the implementation process in 2019, how far we've come. So you'll see there, each bar represents all 78 of our recommendations, and then the dark green color represents recommendations that are complete. So you see we started at 8 complete recommendations, and now we are up to 25 at the end of 2022 going into 2023. As far as ongoing, that basically signifies recommendations that are never going to be fully done because really they're a change in the way of doing business or things that need to continue happening. So those represent 8 of our recommendations. We have 29 of our recommendations currently in progress. So these are things that the project team is actively working on. And then 16 of those recommendations are longer term that we have not yet started on. So again, at the beginning of this process, we started with 42 recommendations that were still kind of longer term in the queue, and now we have that number down to 16. So you can see we've made steady progress year by year on our 78 recommendations, thanks in part to our working group members and new members of the public who have been advocating to keep advancing each of these recommendations and really providing your feedback throughout. So this chart just really summarizes of those in progress recommendations, 12 of them are actively in design. So that means they're being engineered and projects are coming soon, and 17 of them are still in the planning phase. So some notable achievements from 2022 include sidewalk improvements along Savannah Road were completed. The Munchie Branch Road Phase 1 shared use path was completed. Phase 2 is being workshopped now. The Mulberry Knoll Road extension study was completed, and that really ties back to recommendations 8.7, E2, and E3. The governor did sign into law the Don't Block the Box legislation. And also the Lewis Line pilot season was a success. So that was kind of a Lewis town-driven effort to have a kind of circulator bus. It was a retired DART bus they used to move around Lewis to help in the summer months supplement DART service. And just as a little PSA, I wanted to let you all know that we also have some substantial construction in the area starting in 2023 and 2024. So we do have Plantation Road already underway, but that project is going to take a couple of years to complete since it is a rather large project, as well as a number of other projects, including intersection improvements at Minas Conway and the Minas Conway Road grade separated intersection, as well as a new bridge on New Road, which you might have heard of, and some other GSIs. So again, this is coming. We will be communicating updates to you via following 5 points in the project website, but if you have questions, I do encourage you to check out that DelDOT project portal for the latest and greatest information, and keep an eye on press releases coming from DelDOT as to construction status. This coming year, we'll really be focused on continuing work on our 31 recommendations that are currently in progress. We'll also continue working with developers on transportation improvements related to their development. So again, this is a partnership between DelDOT and the county, who is in charge of kind of land use review processes and procedures, and making sure that new investments, private investments in our communities are providing the appropriate level of transportation infrastructure to support new housing that is coming online and new businesses coming online. We also want to begin work on 3 new recommendations before the end of the. These are the 5 recommendations that we will be initiating this year. B17 is evaluate use of land made available by narrowing lanes for landscape and multimodal trails or parks. And B18 is looking at locations for designs for aesthetically pleasing gateways to coastal Sussex County. And some of that is actually already being done by the Savannah Road master planning effort, which is currently underway. Recommendation C18, improve lane markings and signage at the listed intersections. Recommendation D13 is identify locations in the study area where bike parking can be provided, and that is going to be done in conjunction with some other bike planning efforts underway, including the SR1 low stress bikeway study and the Lewis bike plan. And lastly, and this is arguably one of the bigger recommendations, study the feasibility, benefits, costs, and impacts of potential service roads along Route 1, including whether narrowing the median would facilitate the provision of those service roads. Calendar year. So if you were in the room for the public meeting or are on the fence about coming, we will have staff on hand with project-specific information. Jamie Whitehouse from Sussex County, Dorothy from the Office of State Planning Coordination to discuss the PLUS process or the state's development review process. We'll have Sarah discussing the Henlopen TID, Anthony Alio on hand to discuss active transportation or bike and pedestrian improvements. Also, a couple representatives from DelDOT to discuss all the projects actively in design and construction in the South District, Brian and Will, and then George Pierce from DelDOT on behalf of the Plantation Road project. So again, obviously I cannot answer your questions now live, but refer you to the public input website. You'll see that there is a comment form there, and if you have any questions or concerns, please fill one out. It will get to our project team and we will be in touch. Our next working group meeting is going to be in October, so we have the summer off, and I hope you do as well. And if you have any other questions, you can always feel free to email DelDOT Project Planner Jen Sinelli Miller, and you see her email and contact information on the screen. So thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to hearing from you.